What's going on, everybody? And welcome into a brand new episode of the Broken Wheelbarrow Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cott. And man, oh man, super excited to be with all of you this evening. I'm stoked, man. We are a couple weeks away from racing. I don't know. We got Bowman, we got the Clash, what now? In not this weekend, the following weekend. So we're 2 weeks away from that, or a little bit less than 2 weeks. We're about 10 days. Then we got Daytona coming up. Speed Week's right around the corner. Man, I know a lot of you, especially in the NASCAR community, is definitely not from Philadelphia like myself. I'm a diehard Eagles fan, so I'm not trying to end this run quickly, but I am super excited to see my favorite football team hopefully win the Super Bowl. But not just that, like I said, we are 10 days away from cars on the track. I am stoked. I don't know about you. If you're joining us live on YouTube, thanks for joining in. Chat's wide open. If you're listening to us, you have something you want to comment, enjoy, all that type of stuff. Chat's wide open live on the YouTube stream. Before we get started tonight, a couple of things I want to announce to all of you. If you love what you're hearing, follow us on Facebook, the Broken Wheelbarrow Podcast. We do have TikTok, which is apparently back, I guess, off the ban from 75 days. I have no clue. We are on TikTok at the Broken Wheelbarrow Pod, YouTube, the Broken Wheelbarrow Podcast. That's where you can watch our live streams. And then, of course, if you miss our live streams, but you want to listen to our episodes, follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, the iHeartRadio, all at the Broken Wheelbarrow Podcast. We love the fan engagement. We want to continue growing with all of you and hopefully continue being that voice of reasoning with NASCAR. And again, if you disagree with us, we have no problem with that. Follow us on Facebook, write your opinion, tell me my opinion sucks, or go on YouTube on the chat and tell us, hey, dumbass, that was a bad opinion. We love the banter. So loaded show on tap this evening for everybody. Kind of continuing that trend, right? Last week we had the Team Toyota 2025 race preview. This week we're going to be doing the Ford 2025 race preview. And then on top of it, kind of a fun question to the audience tonight that we're going to get into a little bit in depth coming up later in the show. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Let's kick things off like we usually do with some show announcements. First things first on our show announcement. Yes, we have announced it for a long time, almost a year. We're going to continue announcing it every single week on this episode. Shows on the road in 2025. Our first one will be at Pocono in June 22nd. We will be up there for our annual Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast tailgate. So if you're at the Tricky Triangle, or if you want to come to the Tricky Triangle, we would love to have you there at our tailgate before the race. Again, we'll have, as it gets closer, we're going to be discussing probably having a couple, getting seats where fans can sit with us during the race. Keep in mind, we'll keep you in the loop on that as well. And then our second show on the road is going to be July 20th at the Monster Mile down in Dover. First time since 2019 that I've been down to Dover. It's been a while. I kept getting rained out at Dover, so I got pissed at Dover and said, "Screw you! I'm not coming back until you change the date." Well, I'm going to commit and keep my word that since NASCAR changed its date, I will 1000% come down there and enjoy the race at the Monster Mile. So we will be definitely linking the two racetracks closest to us as the southeast corner of Pennsylvania's voice of NASCAR. That's Pocono and Dover. Looking at possibly doing one more race in the spring. Undecided about that yet. I gotta get permission slips from my wife. Hopefully that she can take. Hopefully I can go down to a race. We're definitely going to be looking into a track. I got kind of Bristol on my mind a little bit. Maybe I just pull the trigger and do Talladega, but then you got Charlotte and then you got Nashville, which could be hot options for us to be down at. So again, if you like this show and you're going to Pocono, you're going to Dover, come join us at our Pocono tailgate or come join us when we do a show on the road at Dover in 2025. Also, final show announcements this week. We announced it last week. We will do it again this week. Starting in 2025, this podcast will have what we call the Blown Engine text line. It'll be available to you on our YouTube channel. Again, it's just going to be our chat. If your favorite driver screwed up in the race. If your favorite driver's crew chief screwed up in the race. If you are mad at Mother Nature, if you're mad at the schedule, if you're mad at Amazon Prime, which I'm sure we're going to get a lot of those complaints coming up in the near future, whatever you're pissed off about at NASCAR, text us at the Blown Engine line. We want to hear from you, the fan, on how angry you are at your favorite driver, your favorite crew chief, Amazon Prime, TNT, whatever it is, whatever it could be. Hell, even if they brought rap music into a halftime show at a race this year. If you're pissed off, text us. We want to hear from you, and we will definitely read it on air and try to help you calm the anger back a little bit from the previous week's events. So, a couple of show announcements to kick things off tonight. Let's hop into our fast headliners, courtesy of jski.com. We already know, guys, if you're a NASCAR fan, one of the best websites to go look at news articles, look at sponsorship updates, all that good stuff. jski.com, they're there for you, and they're there for the fan. Follow them on X, Facebook, or by web at www.jski.com. So, first sponsorship update this week, Roush Truck Centers will be sponsoring Noah Gragson for 8 races in 2025. Massive sponsor coming over. They were formerly with Chase Briscoe and Stewart-Haas Racing. Noah Gragson kind of raking in a little of those former Stewart-Haas Racing sponsorships. So, job well done by Noah Gragson to bring those sponsorships over. But Roush Truck Centers officially confirmed on today, January 21st, that they'll be going over to Noah Gragson for 8 races. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're on for the Daytona 500. So, look out for Roush Truck Centers in 2025. Second update. Rebel Bourbon will be sponsoring Kyle Busch in select races during 2025. The Kentucky-based Rebel Bourbon kicks off 2025 as the official bourbon of Richard Childress Racing. Rebel was with them back in 2024, 2023. This is a really cool sponsorship. I kind of like the alcohol coming back to NASCAR. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's good sponsorships, and it's good kind of foundations for the sport as well. Rebel Bourbon will be back with them and Richard Childress Racing and Kyle Busch in 2025. Next up, Workforce will be sponsoring Michael McDowell for 3 races in 2025. Workforce is an occupational health and safety solutions program or organization, excuse me. They'll be with Michael McDowell, Inspire Motorsports. Next update, Sunny D will be sponsoring Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for 5 races. So this one's pretty interesting because we already know the story of what happened with JTG Doherty Racing after last year, right? They had the big Kroger sponsor. Kroger's ended up leaving JTG Doherty. JTG Doherty ended up rebranding the Hayek Motorsports. The whole concern was, well, what's going to be the sponsorship model for Hayek? Kroger's was with them for a long time. Who's going to be coming on the Ricky's car? Because a lot of those sponsorships that were with Ricky were part of the Kroger brand. Sunny D ends up coming up in the clutch. They'll be sponsoring Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for 5 races in 2025. And not of note, Sunny D was with formerly of Josh Berry in 2024. Next update. We have, we have actually some sad news. Martin Truex Jr.'s father, Martin Truex Sr., tongue twister there. He ended up passing away on Friday, January 17th. It was announced. A veteran racer in the former NASCAR Busch North Series. Both of his sons, Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Truex, are both race car drivers. Martin Truex Sr. ended up passing away on Friday. Really unfortunate event. Really sad news coming out of the garage. Next update, Bass Pro Shops in Winchester sponsoring Austin Dillon for 17 races at Richard Childress Racing. So we have seen Bass Pro Shops with them for a very long time with Richard Childress and Austin Dillon. It's going to be pretty interesting that connection continues rolling. Now that Truex is out of the sport, Briscoe goes and picks up Bass Pro Shops. Bass Pro Shops staying with Richard Childress Racing as well, and Austin Dillon for 17 races. Team Amerivet to run Cookout Clash with Burt Myers. So for anyone that doesn't know, Team Amerivet, I believe they used to be the old Pit Viper team. They end up rebranding to Team Amerivet. But Burt Myers is going to be driving their car during the Busch Clash at Bowman Gray in about 10 days. For all of you that don't know who Burt Myers is, he has an exceptional record in the article according to jski.com. He has an exceptional record, which includes track championships in 1999, 2001, 2007, 2010, 11, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 23, and 24 seasons as the track modified tour champion. Beyond his dominance at Bowman Gray, Myers boosts titles as the 2010 and 2016 NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour champion and the 02, 2021, and 2023 Smart Modified Tour champion. So Burt Myers is kind of like a modified legend. He'll be in the Busch Clash for Team Amerivet when we get to Bowman Gray in 10 days. Another update, Speedy Cash and Title Max are going to be named anchor partners for Zane Smith in 2025. So we're kind of starting to see what, a couple sponsorship updates from Front Row Motorsports. We saw Gragson kind of lock down a lot of sponsorships as we enter going into late January of this year. Now we're starting to kind of see, Zane Smith kind of lock up some sponsorships. And we'll be talking about Front Row later in this episode in our Ford race preview. Final update this week is going to be, two more updates. The first one is Castrol extends partnership with RFK Racing. Castrol and RFK, they've been together for a while at this point. And the final update of the week, Jimmie Johnson confirms his 2025 Cup schedule. So Jimmie Johnson announced that he will be racing in the following races. He'll be attempting to race in the Daytona 500 on February 16th. And additionally, he will be attempting the race in the Coke 600. And he is believed that both races will have branding and colors of Phoenix, or excuse me, misread the article. It's going to be Daytona 500 and the Coke 600. So those are going to be the two races that he's going to race in 2025. So, all right, pretty much wraps us up of all the sponsorship updates courtesy of jski.com. Follow them on X, follow them on Facebook, or follow them by web at www.jski.com. So we keep talking, or I've been talking a lot, how we're 10 days away from Bowman Gray, the Busch Clash. Again, we're super excited as NASCAR fans. Tires are on the track, like I said, in less than 2 weeks. But I think the big question for a lot of NASCAR fans going into this clash, right? We saw what they did out in LA at the Coliseum. I thought it was a good race. I did. I thought it was a really creative idea. I thought it was a great format. And I felt like a lot of fans were kind of curious, like, cool, we're not in Los Angeles anymore. We're going to Bowman Gray, to the heart and soul of NASCAR country. But what is the clash going to look like? Is it going to look like what Bowman Gray, what the Coliseum looked like? Is it going to look like that? How's the format going to be? Well, NASCAR officially announced the format layout of the clash at Bowman Gray in 10 days. So what they're going to end up doing in this article, it's courtesy of NASCAR.com. It lays out we'll post this on our Facebook page, the Brooklyn Wheel Bearing Podcast, later this week. So anyone who's listening, we'll have it on our website or on our Facebook page. You're more welcome to take a look at it so you can get an understanding of what's going on as well. But in this article, they basically lay out how this race is going to be, right? There's going to be live practice sessions on FS1. The entrance will be split into 3 practice groups, with each group set for 3 practice sessions. Each competitor's fastest lap for their final practice session will determine the starting lineup for one of four 25-lap heat races. So, to reiterate, 3 practice sessions. The last practice session Their speed in the last practice session will determine their starting lineup in one of the 4 25-lap heat races. Okay, let's get into now the second part of this. The fastest driver in the final practice will start from the pole position in heat 1. The second fastest driver will start from the pole position in heat 2. The third fastest driver will start from the pole in heat 3, and so on. Only green flag laps will count in each heat with no overtime in play. The top 5 finishers in each heat will advance to Sunday night's feature event. Okay, so again, 1 through 4 in practice time, that will be your pole position driver in each heat race on Sunday at Bowman Gray. And then the top 5 finishers in each heat will advance to Sunday's main event, Sunday night's event, which we'll all see probably on Fox. Okay, next part. Those who do not advance will have one more chance to advance courtesy of a 75-lap last chance qualifier on Sunday afternoon. So if you don't finish top 5, now you get placed into a 75-lap last chance qualifier. Like the heat races, only green flag laps will count towards the lap total with no overtime in play. The top finishers in the last chance qualifying will advance to the feature race, where they will start 21st and 22nd respectively. The 23rd and final starting position in the clash will be awarded to the driver who finished highest in the 2024 driver point standings who did not already transfer in the main event. So to break this down again, 3 practice sessions. The fastest in each session gets the pole for the heat 25 heat or the 25 lap heat races. Then in those heats, in those 25 laps, the top 5 advance. They will advance into the main event. Then you have the last chance qualifier race, where the top 2 in the last chance qualifier race, they will advance and they will start 21st and 22nd. Finally, the last place, the 23rd and final starting spot in this race at the Clash next week will be awarded to the driver who finished the highest in the 2024 driver point standings, for whoever did not transfer into the main event. So that's how they're going to qualify for this next week at Bowman Gray. Also, what I love about this as well, there is no cautions. It's all green flag laps. Finally, let's get into the main event on Sunday night. It is a 200-lap feature. Starting lineup will be set by the results of the heat races. Heat 1's winner will start on the pole in the main event, while Heat 2's victor will start second in the feature. A time break will be observed at the race's halfway point at lap 100, similar to what we saw out in Los Angeles, right? Halfway point, they did that mid-race concert out in LA. I'm not too sure if they're doing a mid-race concert this week or next week. I think they are. If you're listening to us live on YouTube, if you know that answer, please put it in the chat so I can relate to the audience. And then after the halfway break, then they go 100 laps. Only green flag laps will count, and the event must finish under a green flag at Bowman Gray at the Clash next week. So break it down again for the main event. 200 laps, halfway point at lap 100, probably do a mid-race concert. All laps have to be ran under green to count, which I think we all like. Because if not, on a quarter mile of a track, I mean, we could be there all night. I'm just saying. So that's how pretty much the Clash is going to roll at Bowman Gray. To me, it's very similar to what they did in Los Angeles. I didn't expect anything different. I think that was probably the best format to lay out on a quarter mile of a track. I do, for me, this is my personal opinion, especially when they were at Los Angeles, I really did like how they had that mid-race concert. I know they didn't do it last year. Machine Gun Kelly was supposed to perform. They didn't do it last year, but they did one in 2022. I think it was Wiz Khalifa in 2023 was Wiz Khalifa, 2022 was Ice Cube. I like it. I think it was really cool to have a mid-race concert, especially on a quarter mile, right? Make it an event, right? How many years did we run? How many years did we go to Daytona? And I know I'm going to get crucified for saying this. How many years did we go to Daytona where it was the Budweiser shootout or the Busch Clash, or we ran 75 laps? It became a wreck fest, and there was nothing beautiful about it, right? Okay, cars were on the track. Yeah, you're watching racing. But let's talk about the last two times they were on super speedways at the Clash. 2019, right? The big one. The big one happens. Jimmy Johnson ends up winning. 2020. I mean, if you remember anything of that race, I mean, Eric Jones won that race and the car was completely destroyed. I think the Clash at Daytona kind of ran its course. Not just did it run its course, but the NFL kind of screwed them over too. The Super Bowl now being the week before Daytona messed everything up, where NASCAR's not going to keep they're not going to keep team personnel in Daytona for 2 weeks. They're not. You're not going to run the Clash and have the Super Bowl and then run the 500. There's too much time, there's too much energy. The logistics does not work for either NASCAR or the fan. So this is why I like how they do these different one-offs at the Clash. When they first announced Bowman Gray Stadium, wasn't enamored with North Carolina in February. I wasn't. And I said the weather, to be honest with you, looking at the weather, you guys are getting a snowstorm down in the South right now. But I think what they're going to do with the heat races and what they're going to do for the last chance qualifier and what they're going to do for the main event, I like it because I saw what they did at Los Angeles and it worked. Maybe NASCAR's thinking that worked, the racing worked. Let's put it into an area that we know we could probably boost the audience at. Again, we are 10 days away from the Busch Clash at Bowman, Cookout Clash. I keep saying Busch Clash. It's the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. So let's wrap up with that. And then final news announcement for everyone who has not heard, or if this is new to you, or if it's old to you, sorry, just tune out real quick. For anyone new to it, NASCAR officially will be dropping the Fast NASCAR channel with Tubi Network on Wednesday, January 29th. Austin Kaninsky of motorsportwire.com, in the article, he basically said that NASCAR fans will have the opportunity to watch NASCAR coverage 24/7 without a subscription fee or registration. Some of the programming and content includes classic races, re-airs of the season's events, docu-series, NASCAR Studios, original content, and video podcasts. So again, the key word for a lot of NASCAR fans, and again, I understand that there's some fans that aren't happy with the Amazon Music, Amazon Music. I know there's a lot of fans that are not happy with NASCAR going to Amazon Prime, but I think the NASCAR channel having a subscription or no subscription fee or registration to have all that exclusive content is going to be awesome as a NASCAR fan. Super excited for this opportunity. It's going to be with Tubi. You can download Tubi on your smart TV. And again, it will be in connection with them. Again, it's 24/7 NASCAR coverage. You can't beat it. I mean, think about it. We had Speed Channel, and then we had FS1, which kind of got formulated. I know, Race Hub ended up going away last year. I know NBC had something, or NBC Sports, they had Motor Mounts for a while. So I'm excited for this opportunity to have 24/7 coverage that's not on cable network. I really do like it. And for a lot of the fans that aren't enamored with the live streaming and all that type of stuff, again, no subscription fee or registration. It's going to be, as of now, free. So wanted to break that down for our fans today as well. So a couple of things, like I said, coming out of the Fast headliners, the Bowman Gray discussion, and of course the NASCAR channel. So let's head to our chat real quick. Let's see who posted in our chat. Read it on air. Give me a second. James ended up reaching out. James, I will talk to you after the show. I apologize. We had some weird, wacky weather over the last couple of days, and my phone kind of broke. So it's back up and running and fixed. So I will reach out to you in a couple of days. Okay, cool. Let's get into our, let's get into our discussion. Or the question I wanted to ask tonight with the audience, and kind of like a fun kind of topic. I was thinking about it today, and so last night the NCAA had their championship game. College football, they played Ohio State, Notre Dame for the championship. And the college football season, or the NCAA, did something very, very different than years past, right? We saw a college football playoff of 4 teams. We bumped it up to 12 teams in 2020 after the 2024 season. Awesome. We could get into the discussion on a different time frame. You can text me, you can call me, you can Facebook IM me, as James said. We could talk about the committee on a different time. Let's take the committee out of this discussion tonight, because that's a whole different topic. Everyone's been complaining about the playoffs in NASCAR. They go, well, we're not rewarding consistency. Well, we're not rewarding this or that or this or that. And I've always said, I think the beautiful thing about the NASCAR playoffs is that it mimics other professional sports' playoffs. And that's what we want as Americans, right? We want sometimes the Cinderella story to win. We want teams just come from the bottom and win a championship. We see it in the NFL. We see it in the MLB. We see it in the NBA. We see it in the NHL. We see it in all different sports in this country. Last night in the college football playoffs, we saw number 8 ranked Ohio State defeat number 7 ranked Notre Dame. We didn't see 1 and 2. We saw 7 and 8. It reminds me, and I guess my question to the audience tonight, if you're listening live on YouTube, feel free to blow the chat up. I'm more than willing to talk about it. I would love to see what the college football playoff system did. I would love to see that format in NASCAR. Instead of 12 teams, we could still do 16. And, well, man, how do we do that? Okay, let's break this down. 16-team playoff format, similar to the college football playoffs. I would have drivers pinned against each other in the rounds. I would. I would still do 10 races in the playoffs. 3, 3, 3. And what I would do is have the championship race obviously determine the championship. For me, in this format, the number 1 driver, whoever wins the regular season points championship, they get the first round bye. They're automatically in the first. They get the first round bye. So the first 3 races of the playoffs, they advance already. What I would do next is the driver who finished second in the points has to outrace the driver who finishes 16th in the points. If you finish third in the points, you got to outrace whoever finishes 15th in the points. And have a process of elimination like that. I think it brings competitiveness. I think it brings a different aspect to the sport. And I think you have drivers competing against each other like the athletes they are. Again, whoever finished second in the points, they'll face 16 in the points in the first 3 races. And whoever totals the points up at the end of the round, they advance. So we can have upsets. We could have upsets. Like if Harrison Burton, who finished 16th in the points this year, if Harrison Burton outraced, let's just say, Ryan Blaney off the final point standings, who finished second in the final point standings. If Harrison Burton in the first 3 races outraced Ryan Blaney, well, Ryan Blaney's going home. The playoffs are done for Ryan Blaney. He's not a playoff driver anymore. I think what it does with the college football playoff format, that similar system going into NASCAR, does 2 things. 1, you reward the regular season points champion. So the goal is to basically accumulate as many points as possible. and win the championship for that first round bye. You winning the first round or winning the regular season points championship ensures you a round of 12 appearance. But then also it gives you an opportunity not just to continue trying to win races to get into the next round, but it also continues pushing these drivers to beat competitors. So if you're the driver who's second in the points and you're facing number 16 in the points, you go from that. Now, in this instance, Ryan Blaney has to outrun Harrison Burton. Will it be done? Probably. But the point is that he still has to race those races. Instead of going, well, he's 24 to the good and all that type of no. You got to beat somebody now. The only difference with my scenario with the NASCAR playoffs is I personally would not make a committee. I just want it. I think that's stupid. We don't need a committee. And then, like I said, after each round of the playoffs, we reseed it. So then the one seed has to outrace the lowest remaining seed in the playoffs. So using 2024 as an example, if Harrison Burton outraced Ryan Blaney, then Tyler Reddick, who won the regular season points champion, has to face Harrison Burton in the next round. It gives the fans and the viewership, I think, something that could be very intriguing. It's similar to the in-season tournament that we're going to see in 2025. Drivers racing against each other and who can accumulate more points. Everyone complains that not every race is equal the same. The playoffs suck, all that type of stuff. Well, I offer this scenario. Can the college football playoff system work in NASCAR? I think it can. I think damn well it can. I think it'd be entertaining as hell. And I know we'll have fans reaching out to us on YouTube and all our Facebook page. I'll post this question in the Facebook page tonight and all the different groups. And I'm sure as hell we're gonna have people complaining about it. Excuse me. I'm sure as hell we're gonna have people complaining about, well, that's a stupid scenario and all that type of stuff. We may have fans that be like, man, that's a really interesting scenario. I didn't really think about that. Because the point of this would be to prove that NASCAR drivers are athletes too. They're competitors. It's an added bonus now to not just race every single race so you can get the first round bye, quote unquote. By winning the regular season points championship. So now every race matters. Every race matters. And then on top of it, you get a bye. Oh, you lock yourself in the round of 12. That's great. But now you got to go compete against somebody else. And I think it'd be fun as hell. Again, American athletic watchers, sports enthusiasts love multiple things. They love underdogs. They love watching. They love betting. This would be a perfect way to start the betting system. It'd be fun. I asked that question to the audience while you're listening to tonight's episode. Think about the system. Think about what I just proposed. Think about what I'm saying. And if you have any comments, feel free to put us in the chat. Let's get to the chat right now to see what's going on. James, he ends up tuning. James goes, I'll tune in later again with the volume once move. Oh, okay. Whoops. Sorry. Okay. Again, I asked the question, would you want to see the college football playoff in NASCAR? For me, I would say yes. And I'm someone that loves the current playoff system. But if you're going to change it, I think you change it like that. All right. Let's get into the next topic of conversation tonight. More of the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode. And let's get into our as like I said, this is going to be a few series of events going into the Busch or the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray. Last week we had the Team Toyota 2025 season preview. If you missed that and you didn't listen to the episode and you missed what we said last week in regards to Toyota, 2025 expectations for Team Toyota. I have 10 wins for Joe Gibbs Racing, and let me pull it up real quick. I believe I wrote down. Yes, that's correct. I wrote down 5 wins for 23XI. No wins for Legacy. I just need to see more consistency out of them. So, like I said, last week we did the Team Toyota. I had 10 wins for Joe Gibbs Racing. I had 5 wins for 23XI. And a couple people reached out last week from last week's episode, and they said, "Wow, I did not really think about that with Denny Hamlin losing Chris Gaypart and going to Chris Gale as crew chief." And a lot of people were surprised that I said that Joe Gibbs Racing is going into a transitional year in 2025. Couple of things I also made a mistake on from last week's episode. I apologize. Crew Chief Corner. Thank you so much if you're listening. Bobby ended up confirming right now Mavis is not lined up to return to Joe Gibbs Racing. I know last year, late January, they were in discussions to get onto the car. So Mavis ended up, they're not re-signed just yet. As of now, they're not linked to Joe Gibbs Racing, so I appreciate that. And it was confirmed by a listener that Money Loin was no longer with 23XI Racing, so jski.com did not take that off. So just to confirm, Moneyline is no longer with 23XI. They exited NASCAR. And Mavis Discount Tire at the moment is currently not with Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, again, Mavis came up with a sponsorship model late January of 2024. Maybe it happens with Joe Gibbs Racing again 2025, but as of now, it doesn't look like it's promising for Denny Hamlin to have Mavis as a partner. So really interesting to keep in mind. Hopefully, we have a couple more updates in case if anything happens, we'll keep everybody up to date. So, all right, now let's get to manufacturer number 2 in the 2025 season preview, leading you guys up to Bowman Grays at the Clash at Bowman. We're going to discuss Ford tonight and what to expect from the Ford teams. So Ford from 2024 to 2025 had a massive shuffle within the manufacturers. Stewart-Haas Racing exited NASCAR. I think we were all aware of that. And they sold off 3 of the 4 cars. 1 to Front Row Motorsports, 1 to Trackhouse Racing, and 1 to 23XI. That's the ride that Riley Herbst has. So we're going to kick things off tonight with our Ford season preview with Front Row Motorsports. New driver lineup entering 2025. Noah Gragson will be with Front Row Motorsports in the number 4. He'll be in the 4 car this year. Todd Gilliland will be in the 34. So he shuffles from the 38 to the 34 with the exit of Michael McDowell at the end of last year. And then Zane Smith will be entering in the 38 car. Zane Smith, coming over from Spire Motorsports in 2024, returns to Front Row Motorsports. So let's get to driver number 1 this year at Front Row Motorsports, and that's Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson, he came over from Stewart-Haas Racing. Last year, we'll get into some stats, but I thought last year, Noah Gragson was in the Cup back in 2023 with Legacy Motor Club when they were with Chevrolet. Obviously, he had the derogatory post, ends up getting knocked out of Legacy, ends up, going to, basically trainings and all that type of stuff. He comes back with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024 in the 10 car. Noah Gragson ended up shuffling over to the 4 with Front Row. His sponsors in 2025 are going to be MillerTech, which we talked about last week. Zepp, we talked about that last week, both coming over from Stewart-Haas Racing. And we have Rush Truck Centers, which we just talked about in the Fast Headliner section. They'll be with Noah Gragson for 8 races. I'm kind of interested in regards to Black Rifle Coffee. Black Rifle Coffee has been with Noah Gragson for a while. I'm surprised to not see anything link up with him in 2025. Maybe more things will come, but as of now, it looks like I think his sponsorship model's pretty much wrapped up. So maybe Black Rifle Coffee sneaks in there. More to come on that. Let's talk about Noah Gragson, though, as a driver in 2024. All stats and all sponsorships. Stats courtesy of NASCAR.com. I'm going to lay it out there right now. and sponsorships, all courtesy of jski.com to keep them up to date. So 2024 stats from Noah Gragson, again, courtesy of NASCAR.com. Finished 24th in the 2024 point standings, had an average finish of 19.55 with 7 top 10s, 1 top 5, 13 laps led, 6 DNFs, again, all driving for Stewart-Haas Racing. I think what's interesting about Noah Gragson is, again, and these stats are basically something that the Broken Wheel Bearing podcast, now we start doing these in-depth stats. So the stat line from the 2024 season, that's courtesy of NASCAR.com. But the in-depth stats coming up are all courtesy of the Broken Wheel Bearing podcast. And that's something that we're going to be adding to the repertoire in 2025 and always giving ourselves some credit. The in-depth stats, though, on Noah Gragson, he was not a bad driver in 2024. He was with an organization that was pretty much closing up shop, right? 23 out of 36 races, Noah Gragson finished in the top 20 in 2024. When people ask me this, they're always like, well, Matt, why do you always go top 20? And I'm like, because top 20 is usually the halfway point of the field in a NASCAR race. Usually they run about 30, I would say 37 to 40 cars. Top 20 is significant. So for Noah Gragson, he finished 23 out of 36 races in the top 20, which would give him a 63% of the races that he ran finishing in the top 20 in the 2024 season. 13 finishes were outside the top 20, which gave him a finish rate outside the top 20 at 36%. Now, the biggest thing with Noah Gragson was DNFs. DNFs happen. They do. I get it. But Noah Gragson almost felt like it was an outlier with how high of a DNF count he had. 6 of those 13 finishes that were below 20th were caused from DNF. So let's take this as an example. 46% of those below top 20th finishes were caused by an accident or a mechanical issue, not by a driver error. Well, excuse me, a driver error if he's in an accident, but it was caused by an accident or a mechanical issue. So when the car was operating, he didn't get caught up in other people's nonsense. He raced pretty well. What do I expect from Noah Gragson in 2025? First, I need him to clean up the DNFs. He's a young driver trying to make a name for himself. I think highly of Noah Gragson. I do. I think he's got talent. I think he can win races in this up into the Cup Series. But he needs to clean up the DNFs. Now, Grant, if we had, and I didn't register and run back on all the DNFs, but if some of these were mechanical, some of them I have to point back to a failing or a below average Stewart-Haas Racing organization. Now, if they're driver, now again, restrictor plate's always going to be an outlier because that's just how the race and the wind velocities work. Take restrictor plate out, take out the mechanicals from. You have a driver that could put a car in the top 20 in the right equipment. And I think that's why Front Row Motorsports is so high on Noah Gragson. Because if they're looking at the same stats I am, 46% of the finishes below 20th were caused by accident or mechanical error. Again, how did I get 46%? 6 DNFs divided by 13 finishes below 20th. And that's how we got 46% of those finishes were caused by accident or mechanical failure. But like I said, what do I expect from Noah Gragson? 1, clean up the DNFs. 2, learn how to drive in the top 15. And he did that pretty good. He had 7 top 10s last year. At one point on this show, Vince and I were talking about how this could be one of the greatest free agent drivers out on the market. I think Front Row locked themselves up pretty good, nicely with Noah Gragson. Let's get to Todd Gilliland, Noah Gragson's teammate, driver number 2 in the Front Row stable. Todd Gilliland sponsors this year. He's got Love's Travel Stop, Grillo's Pickles, A&W Restaurants. Again, sponsorships all courtesy of jski.com. 2024 stat line from Todd Gilliland. Finished the 2024 season 22nd in the final points. He had an average finish of 20.8, 4 top 10s, 130 laps led, and 3 DNFs. Todd Gilliland ended up finishing 19 out of 36 races in the top 20, which would give him a top 20 rate of 52%. 17 out of those 36 races, he finished below top 20, which would give him a 48% of his races ran in 2024 below the top 20. What do I expect from Todd Gilliland in 2025? Well, if you look at him as a driver, he was pretty balanced between finishing above the top 20 and below the top 20. He was nearly at a 50% rate. I need more from Todd Gilliland, though. I need more from Todd Gilliland. He shifts over to this flagship car at Front Row Motorsports. To give a little update, Michael McDowell had 6 poles with this car in 2024. Michael McDowell also led 256 laps in this car in 2024. The biggest factor with this 34 car, Michael McDowell won 2 races in the last 4 years in this car. I need Todd Gilliland to take over the wheel and continue the trajectory of what the car is becoming. I think Bob Jenkins has high regards on what Todd Gilliland is a driver. And I think that Todd Gilliland needs to prove his point or prove his worth and get himself into the trajectory of what it's supposed to be. We all saw that this car had a ton of speed in 2024 in regards to poles, in regards to laps led. The car saw the front. Front Row Motorsports has speed. I'm a huge Todd Gilliland guy. I really am. I believe he has the talent to win. But before we get to that part, I expect him to win a pole, which he didn't do in 2024, which was surprising because Front Row put the car on the front row. It felt like almost every single week. I expect him to win a pole or 2 in 2025. I expect him to race his 52% of finishes above 20th to the low 60s. And again, continue putting the car in the front. Good things happen to drivers when you have the car in the front of the field. Third driver in the Front Row stable is Zane Smith. Sponsors for Zane Smith this year after coming over from Spire Motorsports. Title Max and Speedy Cash, which we announced earlier in the show. 2024 stats with Spire. Well, he finished 30th in the points, average finish of 23.1, 4 top 10s, 2 top 5, 6 laps led, and 5 DNFs. In the advanced depth stats, courtesy of the Broken Wheel Bearing podcast, finished 14 out of 36 races in the top 20 with a top 20 finish rate at 38%, which to me, on the surface, it doesn't look good. 38% finishes above the top 20, that's not good. You usually, as a driver, you need to aim above 50 or higher, but benefit of the doubt here. How good was that third Spire car? How good was that third Spire car? We don't know. And we might know what it is this year with Michael McDowell. We'll talk about Chevy next week. Zane Smith finished 22 out of 36 races outside the top 20 with a finish rate outside the top 20 of 61%. To go even more in depth on these finishes outside the top 20, 11 of those 36 races were 30th or worse for Zane Smith. That would give him a finish rate of 30th or worse at 30%. So 61% of his finishes in 2024 when finished below the top 20, and then 30% of them finishes he finished below 30th. Not good. But what do I expect from Zane Smith in 2025? First, I need to see Zane Smith be the prospect everyone was excited about. Goes back to a very familiar organization with Front Row. Won truck races with the organization. I need Zane Smith to find ways to continue running in the top 15. 30% of finishes of 30th or worse is unacceptable at the Cup level. It just is. It put Harrison Burton back in the Xfinity Series. I'm sorry not to knock Harrison Burton, but if you finish that low, you're just getting knocked back down. You need to finish higher than 30th place, more than 30%, like I said, 30% of finishes of 30th or worse, that number needs to get he needs to lower that number quickly. Because, like I said, he'll be back in the Xfinity with Harrison Burton. With those finishes and how bad they are, I heard Denny Hamlin talk about it last year on this podcast. He said, I'd rather win races on Friday and Saturday than finish 30th or worse on Sunday. So with all those finishes of 30th or worse for Zane Smith, at what point are you really learning anything? The one pass, as I mentioned earlier in the Zane Smith discussion, the one pass I give Zane Smith, how good was that Spire Motorsports car in 2024? How good was that third Spire car? To me, like I said, we'll find out how good it is because Michael McDowell's going to be driving it this year. But for me, I don't think it was that great. I don't think it was close to competitive. Zane Smith did flash potential multiple times. And I loved his comment too after the race at Nashville when he finished second behind Logano. He said, these cars run great in clean air. Well, for sure. For sure they do. What do I expect from Front Row Motorsports in 2025? Okay, so hear me out. Front Row Motorsports in 2025, I expect one win. I expect multiple poles and 3 drivers growing together. To me, I think that this driver lineup could be really fun with all 3 of these guys. They're all still trying to etch their career paths together. They're younger guys. They were once blossoming prospects with Gragson. I mean, Zane Smith, I think, to me, has a lot of potential. I think Todd Gilliland has a lot of potential, and I think Gragson is going to learn and get into that next level of a driver at the Cup. Gragson, I think, is the oldest out of all 3 of them. I think at the end of 2025, I think all of us can say, well, that was just a fun group. That was just a fun group of drivers. Front Row has speed. That's the one thing I don't want people to misconceive. They have speed. They won poles. They won races. They led laps. They were in the front, the 2 of them, McDowell and Gilliland. I expect them to continue growing together in 2025, and I do expect one of their cars in victory lane. That I will say in multiple poles. So that wraps us up with Front Row Motorsports. Next organization in the Ford stable. Let's get to Wood Brothers Racing. One car organization. We already know that driver lineup in 2025 it changed from Harrison Burton to Josh Berry. Sponsors for Berry this year is going to be Motorcraft and Quick Lane, which has been a Wood Brothers staple for years. Let's talk about Berry as a driver. Again, stats courtesy from 2024, courtesy of NASCAR.com. Finished 27th in the points, 22.7 average finish, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 96 laps led, and 10 DNFs. Advanced stats, courtesy of Broken Wheel Bearing. Josh Berry finished 14 out of 36 races, 20th or better, with a 38% finish rate of top 20. On the flip side, he finished 22 out of 36 races, 20th or worse, which would be a finish rate at 61%. Now, let's get even more in-depth and technical. 10 out of those 22 races where he finished 20th or worse, 45% of those finishes of 20th or worse were due to DNFs. I get it. DNFs happen. We usually try to calculate probably on average 3 to 4 DNFs a year. Josh Berry had 10 DNFs last year. 10. I didn't look at all the stats. I think the highest in the Cup Series. I get not finishing well, but 10 DNFs is a massive outlier. A massive outlier. He's not going to DNF 10 times in 2025. I can tell you that. What do I expect from Josh Berry in 2025? Well, he goes from a 4-car operation to a single-car operation with Wood Brothers. Yes, they get support from Team Penske. I know that. I hear that. He is a de facto Penske teammate, but I expect Josh Berry to improve 61% of finishes below 20th. That I do expect. I think Berry's got talent. He's a very good short track racer. That's something I really do think. And he came along pretty well at the super speedways. Ford always has a great Roush Yates engine is always going to super speedways. He's going to have drafting support. He's going to be a factor in the super speedways. But I'm really interested in what he's going to do on the short tracks. I believe that he can, I think he could be successful in that car on the short tracks. Look what he did last year at Iowa. He was a factor in that race until it started becoming dark and his tire wear and all that. But I think that he could be he could be a threat on the short tracks in that 21. Also, I do not expect Josh Berry to DNF 10 times in 2025. Absolutely not. I don't. And again, DNFs are an outlier, but 10 of them is ridiculous. That's above the median in the circuit. Like, could it happen? The 10 DNFs? I mean, I'm sure, but 10 is just way too high. I do expect Berry to win with the Wood brothers. Excuse me. The question. I'm sorry. Do I expect Berry to win with the Wood brothers? No. Maybe to no. I have them down right now in 2025 for 0 wins. But if he were to win, I expect him to win on a super speedway. He could be competitive on the short track. Maybe he does slip one up and get his short track win. That's where I see the success coming from, super speedway and short track. The comparison of this move, though, I've been telling fans about this, and I'm not a fan of this driver whatsoever. I think if you've been with me since 2023, you know that. But the biggest comparison of this move I have thrown out there is probably Matty D, circa 2021. Competitive, finishes top 20, maybe a fringe playoff driver. That's what I expect from Josh Berry. I expect him to be better than 27th in the points. I expect a driver to maybe be a fringe playoff driver, but I don't expect a playoff driver at all. I don't expect him to make the playoffs. I could see him on the fringe. Next driver up in the Ford stable, another one-car organization. That's going to be the Haas factory team, which is pretty interesting. Driver lineup this year is going to be Cole Custer. He makes his return from the Xfinity Series. The return of Stone Cole Custer, baby. Cole Custer sponsors in 2025 is going to be Haas Automation and HaasTooling.com. So a lot of support and a lot of finance coming from Gene Haas, which was pretty much expected when we found out that this team was going to become the Haas factory team. 2024 stats courtesy of NASCAR.com. Again, no races ran in the Cup Series. I thought he ran one with Rick Ware Racing, but according to the data, he did not. That was 2023. All stats of his are going to be read from 2024 Xfinity Series. So in the Xfinity Series, he finished second in the points behind Justin Allgaier with a 10.5 average finish with 2 wins, 14 top 5s, 23 top 10s, 3 poles, 4 DNFs, and 779 laps led. So he was pretty successful in the Xfinity Series. He won the championship in 2023, pretty successful championship run last year, just fell short of Allgaier. Again, since all of his stats were from the Xfinity Series, we're not going to dive into the top 20 finishes like the previous drivers because that data to me does not apply to the next level. We have seen multiple Xfinity drivers be successful down at that level and come up here and kind of become mid to average. So we're going to leave all that information out. Hopefully, when we do this circa 2026, we will have data to sit there and share with all of you. Instead, let's discuss what to expect from the Haas factory team. To start things off, I have this team down for 0 wins. I got 0 wins with Haas factory team, but I do expect a competitive car. I do. I think Haas factory team is going to be the biggest enigma going into 2025. And why do I say that? I think Gene Haas is not as stupid as what some NASCAR fans think he is. I think sometimes as NASCAR fans, we are so loyal to Tony Stewart that we've convinced ourselves that Gene Haas is an idiot. But I really don't think he's an idiot. I think that they have a lot of organizational support within. I think they have a lot of smart people. They do have 2 cars returned to the Xfinity Series, which is going to be interesting as well. They got 2 great drivers in the Xfinity Series. They have Sheldon Creed, who is looking for his first career win at the Xfinity Series, and they got Sam Mayer. So there's going to be a lot of talent as a driver. I don't think that they would bring these drivers in if they didn't think they were going to be competitive. You can sit there and say what you want about Cole Custer. Oh, his dad. But at one point, like, he did win a race in his career at the Cup Series. I get it. That was at the height of Stewart-Haas racing. But I still believe, I do believe that Gene Haas has a lot of smart people working for him. I also think that one thing that they're going to, I think that one thing that's going to benefit the Haas factory team in 2025, they don't have 4 cars anymore. So there's a lot of smart people and a lot of intelligent people and a lot of resources going into that one car. Again, to me, Cole Custer has talent, and he's won a race at the Cup. You can say it was a fluke at Kentucky, whatever. I'm not going to argue with that. But he won the Xfinity Series championship last year, 2023. He finished runner-up this past year. And what's called a Ziz, too. Yeah, it may not look sexy on the surface, but the one thing with Gene Haas, one thing with Cole Custer, that team had really dying support. And a lot of people said it, too. In the garage, and when we talked about it, a lot of people said with the organization going out of business, a lot of people jumped ship. They wanted to get into other organizations and for job security. So for him to almost finish second in the Xfinity Series with everything that happened with Stewart-Haas Racing, gotta give a little credit where credit's due. Do I expect them to win a race at the Cup level in 2025? No. Do I expect them to make the playoffs? No. But I expect them to be pretty damn competitive. I could see them being a very solid team. I think that's the key word. I can see them being a very, very solid team in 2025. And maybe this is the rebirth of Gene Haas in NASCAR to becoming a dominant team once again with the exit of Tony Stewart. Now, the one thing about me, and I'm going to get crucified for this too, but I'm going to call everybody out that's so loyal to Tony Stewart. To me, the way that Tony Stewart handled this is that he threw, like he did in his career, is that he threw a temper tantrum and decided to leave NASCAR because he didn't get along with the bureaucrats at NASCAR. Tony Stewart gave us the best post-race interviews ever with the Goodyear and, the figure eights and punching Joey Logano. Gave us funny interviews, but it was childish. To be honest with you, I feel like Gene Haas is probably relieved that Tony Stewart's gone. Kevin Harvick said it on the Happy Harvick podcast. He even said it best. He's like, how do we go from forever to forward to out of business? One name, Tony Stewart. Because he cried because he didn't think Ford was giving the manufacturer backing. So I'm interested to see what Gene Haas can actually do with adults in the garage. I'm excited for that. Again, if you're paying attention at home, I do have those 0 wins for Haas factory team in 2025. Competitive, 0 wins. All right, we're coming down to the final 2 Ford teams on our 2025 Ford Racing team or Ford Racing preview of 2025. Let's get into Ford's 1B at this point. RFK Racing. Man, do I love myself some RFK Racing. That, you talk about fun organization. Brad Keselowski and company is a ton of fun. Driver lineup in 2025, it has changed. It has changed, folks. Brad K is staying in the 6. Chris Buescher remains in the 17. But Ryan Preece has been added to the number 60. So he goes from Stewart-Haas Racing, lands on his feet with RFK's third team. And to me, we're going to talk about Preece now. Before I get into any discussion, any thoughts and all that, let's talk about Ryan Preece, sponsors, what he did in 2024 and as a driver in depth. Ryan Preece sponsors in 2025, Kroger, Built Submarines, Castrol, Mohawk Northeast, Fastenal, and Esprion Therapeutics. In 2024 stats, again, courtesy of NASCAR.com, finished 26 in the points, 20.88 average finish with 1 top 5, 5 top 10s, 2 laps led, and 5 DNFs. let's take a look at Ryan Preece in depth. A lot of people in the garage, a lot of fans do this too. A lot of fans go, "What did Ryan Preece ever do in his career?" To sit there and always warrant these big expensive rides, right? Like Stewart Haas Racing in 2023, he got that ride. JTG Doherty, I don't think was a really big ride. But they had a big sponsorship in Kroger, which ended up coming over to RFK Racing. But I'm just sitting there, a lot of people complain about Ryan Preece all the time, and let's take an in-depth look at what he has done as a driver in 2024 to try to convince you, the listener, that Ryan Preece is not as bad as you think. 17 out of the 36 races he finished in the top 10, which would give him a finish rate at 47%. 19 out of those 36 races he finished below the top 20, which would give him a 52% finish rate below 20th. Okay, now you might have an argument. You're right. 52% rate below 20th. Not good. That's below the 50th percentile. 47% above 20th. What the hell? Matt, you're trying to tell me that he's a good driver, and those percentages don't line up to convince me that he's a good driver. Well, here's the craziest stat, right? This is why people love him. Ryan Preece only had 6 finishes below 30th. Okay. 6 below 30th. You're sitting there going in your head, listening to me going, well, that's not convincing at all. What the hell? Five of those 6 finishes below 30th were DNFs. Only 5 out of the 6. So he only had one true finish below 30th. That was not a DNF. I think this is what RFK sees with Ryan Preece, that the average fan does not. He finishes races, runs hard laps. The benefit I believe Ryan Preece gets is that he has always been with some underachieving organizations or teams going out of business. JTG Doherty Racing ended up losing that ride. They went down to a one-car operation. Stewart Haas Racing went out of business. I think owners and people are sitting there looking at it going, what can he do in top-tier equipment? And that's what RFK Racing is. We all thought Stewart Haas Racing was that in 2023. They were not. It turned out to not be a good team. What do I expect from Ryan Preece in 2025? Well, the excuses are over for him. For any fan listening, the excuses are over. This is the best team he's ever been in with his career, and RFK is a playoff/fringe championship caliber team. They're Ford's 1B. I expect Preece, though, to live up to the expectations. I do. I expect Preece to find himself running top 15 at a lot higher of a rate than he did in 2024. I expect to see him in the top 10 a lot. The one thing I will say about Preece, he is a very good short track racer with the right equipment. 2023, Stewart Haas Racing won the pole, led all those laps, won stage 1. If given the right opportunity, he has overachieved in average equipment. So you have to, if you can give him the right opportunity, I think he could be successful. I still don't see a win for him in 2025, but to me, his stat line after the season can push him into into playoff contention. Let's get to Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher, his sponsors, 2025, Fastenal, Fifth Third Bank, Castrol Edge, BuildSubmarines.com, Esprion Therapeutics, Travel Centers of America, and Kroger. According to NASCAR.com, 2024 stat line. Finished 17th in the points with 1 win, 6 top 5s, 15 top 10s, 208 laps led, 2 DNFs, and an average finish of 14.3. That average finish was clean. Chris Buescher, in the advanced data that I'm going to provide you, Chris Buescher only had 7 finishes of 20th or worse in 2024, which would equal 19% of his finishes. 29 out of the 36 races, Chris Buescher finished 20th or better, which would be an 80% finish rate. So Chris Buescher was a top 20 car for 80% of the season. I like Chris Buescher a lot. This is a driver that has grown so much since Brad got into ownership in RFK. This is what Brad was talking about when he wanted to keep Chris on as a driver. The man does not make mistakes and runs hard laps. The dude literally run. I think he's the hardest driver in the circuit. He is a hard. He just runs quality laps. The one thing that we can't the one thing that we can always say too is he continues to find victory lane. Over the last 3 seasons, he's found victory lane at Bristol, he's found it at Michigan, he found it at Daytona, he found it at Richmond, and then he found it at Watkins Glen. So one on 2 short tracks, one a 2 mile or open wheel, one a super speedway, one a road course. The man can win on anything at this point. What do I expect from Chris in 2025? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest expectation for me is he's going to fight him. He's going to fight back in situations like what happened to him at Darlington and Kansas. He's not going to get pushed over anymore. We saw how valuable a win it would have been in the regular season for Chris Buescher, right? He won at Watkins Glen in the playoffs, which was race number 2 in the round of 16. And then for that win, though, we saw how aggressive he can be. He put the bumper, he put his car right in the bumper of Shane Van Gisbergen and moved him out of the way and won the race. I expect to continue watching Chris Buescher grow into that elite driver, and I do expect to see the 17 in victory lane multiple times in 2025. I think that Chris ended up getting the confidence. He's going to move the driver out of the way. And if he gets that win early in the season, listen, he could be a driver that can contend for the regular season points championship. I expect him to still maintain that 80% finish rate above 20th. I do. And if he wins early in the season, God, if he wins at Atlanta or Daytona, he might end up running away with the regular season points championship in 2025. Let's get to the final driver of the RFK stable, and that's Brad Keselowski. Sponsorships in 2025: Castrol, Built Submarines, Fastenal, Solomon Plumbing, Kroger, Esprion, and Consumer Cellular with Kroger. 2024 stat line for Brad K was 1 win, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, 3 DNFs, 318 laps led, and an average finish of 15.6. Okay, advanced stats. Finished 13 out of 36 races below the top 20, which was a finish rate of 36%. Finished 23 out of 36 races in the top 20 with a finish rate of 63%. Now, a little bit more in depth about Brad K in 2024. Out of those 23 finishes in the top 20, 19 of those finishes were 15th or better. So Brad had a top 15 car pretty much. I mean, if he was finishing in the top 20, quote unquote, he was going to be a 15th place or better car, excuse me. RFK has become Ford's 1B team next to Penske. It really all starts with Brad, though. Since he has come over from ownership, he has brought in organizational vision, stability, winning, and creating a changing culture to continue placing cars in victory lane / playoff and fringe playoff contention. For me, what Brad brings as an owner is a playbook for what the new owners in NASCAR should look at. You need to evolve. You need to change. Jack Roush did not change. He didn't evolve. It eventually got to the point where you lost and lost and lost and lost, and those seats just became open, open, open. Brad comes in and brings in organizational stability. I expect Brad to continue doing those things in 2025 while continuing to be a playoff driver. Yes, that's right. I expect Brad to continue being a playoff driver in 2025. What do I expect from RFK as a whole, though? I have down 4 total wins for RFK in 2025. I see Brad back in victory lane. I see Chris Buescher getting in the victory lane. I actually see Chris and Brad clinching the playoffs pretty early in the season. I also see Ryan Preece battling it out to the end of the playoffs, but without a win, he does not make it in. So if you're keeping score at home, RFK Racing, I have down 4 total organizational wins. All right. Final team of the night. Before we get to that, let's get into our chat. Check it out real quick. And we got Dan who checked in. Dan goes, "Do you see Allmendinger is back in the Cup full time?" I did, and that's going to be the Chevrolet. That's going to be on Chevrolets next week, Dan. So appreciate the listen and appreciate the chat. So we finally got to that. So All right, final Ford team of the night that we're going to talk about going into 2025, and that is, I guess you can say, the champions, Team Penske. We're going to start off with Austin Cindric. I'm going to do something a little bit different with Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. But let's start off with Cindric. Let's start off with the driver lineup first. Excuse me. Driver lineup. Joey Logano, 22. He's back, obviously. Ryan Blaney, he's in the 12. He's back, obviously. Austin Cindric, he's in the 2. He's back, obviously. Starting off with Austin Cindric tonight. Sponsorships. He's going to be, again, courtesy of jski.com. Menards, Discount Tire, and Keystone later his sponsorships in 2025. His 2024 stat line, courtesy of NASCAR.com. He finished 11th in the points. 1 win, 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 256 laps led, 4 DNFs, and an average finish of 19.9. For a playoff driver, an average finish of 19.9 does not equate you to 11th in the points. But let's talk about Austin Cindric in depth. Okay, 17 out of his 36 races, Austin Cindric finished below 20th, which would have been a 47% finish rate below 20th. 19 of those 36 races, though, on the flip side, he finished 20th or better, which would have been a 52% finish rate. So for me, with Cindric, we talked about a couple of drivers in the Ford stable already that actually had a higher finish rate above 20th. But here's the thing about Cindric. He won a race. That's why he continued into the playoffs, clearly. The goal for Austin Cindric is simple in 2025. He has to continue improving on a successful 2024. Made the playoffs in 2024, made it to the round of 12. But one concern I had for Austin Cindric, he needs to start 2025 off fast. Very, very fast. 2024, he did not do that. He was massive. I wish I could just read you guys the driver log. The driver log was completely, I almost vomited reading that driver log and where he finished. Austin Cindric finished 4th at Atlanta in the second race. Great. It's awesome. Good for him, right? Austin Cindric then won 12 races without a top 10, without a top 15 in the early part of 2024. Yes, you heard that correctly. 12 races after Atlanta until he picked up his next top 10. Yes, the win was very helpful. Punched his ticket in, of course. It felt like after the win too, he started gaining confidence. His summer stretch became much better than the early parts of the season. I remember early parts of last year on the podcast. I think Vince and I had the discussion. We're like, could Austin Cindric be on the hot seat? When he wins a Gateway, gets a little confidence. Then he had a really good round of 16. Advanced into the round of 12. But in order for me in 2025, he needs to be much better to start the season off. He needs to start it off quick. He needs to start it off fast. His teammates can run at Vegas. I don't know why. I mean, a couple of years ago, he had some pretty solid finishes at Vegas. Last year, he just didn't. Going back to Cindric, he needs to start the season off fast, and he needs to complete the season, right? You can't just go stretches of, I'm not going to start the season off well, and then you need to complete the season. And in year number, what are we in now? 2022, 3, 4, 5. In year number 4, he needs to complete a whole season. I need these finish rates. I need higher than 52% of 20th or better. I need you to lower 47% of 20th or worse. I need these lines to start going that way, not getting closer. Okay. So that's pretty much going to wrap up all the drivers until with Blaney and Logano. And I told you guys I wanted to do something very fascinating with them and interesting with them because I want to start off with, I guess I'll start off with Ryan Blaney, right? Right now, when I look at the NASCAR Cup Series, excuse me, I think the two best drivers, or if you ask me, I would say there's probably 5 elite drivers in the series at this point. I think there's 5. And I think 2 of them are the ones that we were just going to talk about with Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. It's very, very rare for teammates to finish what they did last year in 2024. Joey Logano won the championship. Ryan Blaney finished second. Ryan Blaney, we're going to start off with his stats, courtesy of NASCAR.com. He had an average finish of 15.2. He had 567 laps led, 7 DNFs, 1 pole, 12 top fives, 18 top 10s, 3 wins in 36 races. He won at Iowa, he won at Pocono, he won at Martinsville. Now, to get this off the chest already, Joey Logano won the championship last year. Average finish 17.11. 414 laps led, 6 DNFs, 3 poles, 7 top fives, 13 top 10s, 4 wins. Okay. Obviously, the question exiting last season, going into the offseason, was Joey Logano the worst champion that we've ever had based off average finish? And the answer is probably yes, right? Because the year before we had that question asked about Ryan Blaney in 2023. Was he the worst average finish? Was he the worst champion based off average finish? And by statistical data, Ryan Blaney was. Well, Joey Logano just trumped that by almost 3 average positions. Blaney almost had, I think Blaney last year was a 14 something. Logano is a 17.11 this year. Everyone that's probably listening, they're like, well, where's the advanced stats? Where's the advanced data? Where's your average finish above 20? The only reason why I did not do that for these two drivers is because I think these two drivers define and go against any law of statistics. These two drivers, to me, Blaney's really coming into his own as probably the pinnacle of elite. Logano, to me, is already, and probably, I think after his second championship, he was already clinched as one of the most elite drivers in the circuit. Him getting number 3 just completely put the icing on the cake for championship, or for where he stands in NASCAR history. I could do all the average finishes above 20th with these two drivers, but the one thing that these two drivers have done that a lot of the other drivers haven't done has defined the laws of adversity. Ryan Blaney in 2023 ended up going down to Martinsville, ends up winning the race, ends up going to Phoenix, finishes second, wins the championship. I literally thought we were going back to back with Ryan Blaney. I really did. Similar story path. He goes down to Martinsville this past season, wins the race. We were in attendance. The only thing that he could not do in order to secure a second straight championship is pass his teammate Joey Logano. Joey Logano, to give you a rough estimate on what Logano's early parts of the season looked like. Logano DNF'd at Daytona. He DNF'd at Atlanta, right? 2 early wrecks. Okay, he finished 9th at Vegas. Cool. They finished 34th at Phoenix, 22nd at Bristol, 11th at COTA, 2nd at Richmond, 6th at Martinsville, 11th at Texas, 19th at Talladega, 16th at Dover. He had back-to-back weeks of terrible performances, 34th at Kansas and 21st at Darlington. And then the summer stretch came in, became a little bit of a roller coaster. But what does he do? He nails that win at Nashville. Fuel mileage. And as they said, Chris Gabehart said, you can save gas when you suck. He did, and that's what happened. Then I had Logano out as an early contender of one and done for me. Define odds again. Goes to Atlanta, wins the race. Okay, starting to get a little shady. He escaped by with the Bowman penalty and Reddick passed him. He escaped by into the round of 8, and what does he do? I remember being on air on the episode saying so many crew chiefs and so many drivers literally punched air when they found out Joey Logano made it to the round of 8. And what does he do? He wins Vegas, and he goes win Phoenix. These two Penske drivers, to me, again, I would say there's 5 elite drivers in this series at this point, and that is it. 5. 2 of them belong to Roger Penske. That's Joey Logano, and that's Ryan Blaney. So for me, real quick before we jump into the final point, Ryan Blaney actually had a very good season. He had a very rough stretch, but when Ryan Blaney had rough stretches, he did not let it roll. A lot of these drivers let these bad stretches roll. Looking at his finish stats of 2024, right? Okay, so he started off a DNF at Daytona at 30th, but then he had three straight top fives. Then he had three straight performances of average finishes, like 16th, 12th, and 19th. Then the 33rd at Texas, everyone was wrecking in that race. But the real concerns are the DNFs and obviously the 30th place finishes. Ryan Blaney never had a string of them together. He had two here, he had two there. So he was able to manage the course of the season. And that's what elite drivers do. They're able to manage through the course of a season. Similar to Joey Logano. Logano started off like horrendous. At one point, he was like 30th in the points, and we were 2 races in. He was able to manage. He was able to manage, win a race, get in, and continue doing what he does. You may hate him for winning the championship last year. Is he the best driver to win the championship? Absolutely not. But to me, he was probably the best driver to win the championship in this aspect, in this regard. He showed you what adversity looks like as a NASCAR driver. He overcame it with Joey Logano. Ryan Blaney did it in 2023. I thought we were going to see it again with Ryan Blaney as well. The only thing that sucked for Ryan Blaney was probably his Homestead loss when he finished second in that race, where Reddick ended up getting him. But these two drivers, to me, like I said, I'll say this for my final statement. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano are part of that category of 5 elite drivers that are in the Cup Series right now. There's only 5 of them. 2 of them reside with Team Penske. I want a driver that can overcome adversity. I want a driver that can put his car in victory lane. I want a driver that puts the car up in the front and runs in the front consistently. But what makes an athlete special? It's not about all the winning and all that type of stuff. It's what the athlete can do when he's down. And these 2 drivers have proven it over the back-to-back seasons. If I'm Austin Cindric, I got to figure out how to be like them. Final point from tonight's episode with the Ford 2025 race preview. Or not race preview, 2025 season preview. Excuse me. It's been a long episode. Bear with me. Still getting back in the rhythm. Final point of tonight for Ford specifically. Guys, if they go 14 straight races without a win, can we please not discuss how they're out of this thing for the championship? Or can we not ask where Ford has been? I want to do the best part myself too, because I did that all in the early parts of 2024. I was like, where's Ford? Where's Ford been? What are they doing? All that type of stuff. And what happens at the end of the season? Well, a Ford driver's holding the championship. So if they go 14 straight races without a win, let's not start the overreaction. Let's not start overreacting. Most likely they're going to win the championship next year. So, all right, cool. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much. Long episode. Didn't mean it to be that long. Like I said, a 2-parter tonight. I wanted to discuss the college football playoff system in the Cup Series. And like I said, with all these seasonal previews coming up with Toyota and Ford and Chevy, these episodes are a little bit long just because we're trying to discuss all the teams in the manufacturer camp. But again, thank you so much for everyone bearing with us on the YouTube live stream. I know we had a couple of chats going on. Like I said, appreciate all the conversation during the episode. But before we close out tonight's episode, before we take the checker flag on it, if you love what we're hearing, invite a friend. Invite a friend to join us on the YouTube channel. Not just that, but if you really want to help us out here at the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast, grow our fan base more. Because like I said, I feel like I'm, still trying to find myself in this field with NASCAR. I feel like we have a good show. I don't feel like we're getting out enough. But if you love us and you love supporting us, go to the Facebook page, the Broken Wheel Bearing Podcast. In the 3 periods, click that. Invite a friend to, just like and check out our Facebook page. And they can, or just have them like our Facebook page or follow our Facebook page. Uh, you can do that for free. You can support our business. You can support us, and you can support us without any dollars or anything like that. So, um, again, continue following us on Facebook, Broken Woodbury Podcast. Good discussions. Love having discussions with you. If you love the live stream, like I said, Tuesday nights at the Broken Woodbury Podcast on YouTube, we'll be live every single night or every Tuesday night. Go into our chat with us, talk with us during the episode. Like I said, I will take pauses out to read your chats. And like I said, when Bowman Gray hits, that chat's going to be critical for the blown engine line. So join us, have fun with us. We want to hear from you, the fan. So again, Tuesday nights at the Broken Woodbury Podcast on YouTube will be our live stream. Also, if you do miss our live streams, listen to us on the three sources: Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Any one of them gives us support, and we would love to continue doing this for you. I absolutely love NASCAR. I absolutely love talking the sport with all of you. Clearly, you guys can tell I can go almost an hour and a half talking about the sport. Again, thank you so much to all the participants in tonight's episode. With all that being said, we will chat on our final manufacturer season preview next week with Chevrolet, and we will get you guys excited and amped up. We have our first picks of 2025 with the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray. So again, thanks to everyone. Thanks for the support. We love all of you. Can't wait to chat next week with Chevrolet. Have a wonderful night. Have a safe week. If you're in the South, be careful with that snow. I know you guys aren't used to that shit. I know you guys aren't. I know my man Trioval Life's going to make fun of me about it. That when I go down to the South in the summer, I'm going to be crying that it's too hot. You're damn straight I'm going to. But at least I can deal with the snow. So, with all that being said, have a wonderful night. Be safe. And again, if you're in the South, just monitor the snow and be safe. All right. We'll chat next week and talk to you later.